$15,000. There is a lot you can do with that kind of money. You can buy 25 iPads, a luxury Tiffany's bracelet. You can even buy a car. This is a lot of money for most people. But in China, this money you can earn easily. All you have to do is spy and rat out people who you think threaten China's national security. Beijing is now offering its citizens cash rewards. This is for tip-offs about people who endanger national security. And this is how it works. The cash rewards are graded into 4 levels. This depends on how valuable your tip-off is. It ranges from $1,500 to over $15,000. The tip-offs must be specific about the people or actions involved. The information also needs to be new to the authorities. The reports can be made in person, online, by post, or through the state security hotline. State agencies will first check the report to see if it was true, and then they decide on the reward. Citizens could also get spiritual rewards in the form of certificates. Spying is, of course, not new in China, but now authorities are intensifying their efforts. They are concerned about so-called growing threats, both from foreign espionage and hostile forces, quote-unquote. The new measures aim to standardize such rewards and motivate the public. The Chinese government is also trying to push a narrative with these measures. It wants the people to know and believe that Beijing is in grave threat. The idea, they say, is to weed out the so-called hostile foreign forces. In 2015, China passed a sweeping national security law. It covered everything from defense to politics. It also set up a national hotline for the citizens. They could call and report about suspected spies or espionage. On the 15th of April 2016, the country even marked its first annual National Security Education Day. It was a day of propaganda. Beijing even released a comic-style poster warning young female civil servants. What did they say? Don't date handsome foreigners. A warning in case they fall in love with a potential James Bond. These campaigns are bad enough for foreigners living in China. They've been used to target government critics, social activists, lawyers, journalists, feminists, and other outspoken members of the Chinese public. Many of them are even called 500K. This means they work for foreign spies and are worth quick cash rewards. China has already been accused of using Orwellian levels of surveillance. Its internal security budget is higher than its military budget. Since 2016, Xi Jinping's policy has been simple. Anything that is even a remote threat needs to be taken down. And with the new rewards, China is now upping the stakes. Let's break this down further. With us from London this minute is Greg Swenson, a political analyst and founding partner at Brigg McAdam. Thanks very much for being here with us. I have to begin by asking you for your reaction to this new strategy that is being deployed by China.
Well, Molly, as you pointed out, it shouldn't come as any surprise. You know, they've been at this for years. So while it's troubling, I wasn't too surprised. And in fact, just last month, the CCP instituted a ban on complaining, which is quite Orwellian in nature. You know, the party basically forbids senior members from having quote unquote improper discussions. So obviously they're squashing dissent as usual. That's not new, and it's not particularly unique to Xi, but it is troubling that he's raising the game a bit. And it might even suggest that there are cracks in his armor, that things are going so poorly in China right now that he feels insecure enough to institute more security measures against foreigners and his own people, his own citizens.
Right. China says that it is facing growing threats from foreign espionage and what it calls hostile forces, quote unquote. What do you make of that?
Well, of course. I mean, they always have to have a scapegoat, and the CCP is notorious for this. But they're really concerned about grumbling within their own ranks, in the senior leadership. I'm not suggesting that Xi is at any risk of not winning his third term when the party gets together this fall, because he is, he's strengthening his hand, if anything. But it does show that things aren't going well. There's a housing crisis, or the housing market is collapsing. We have big Western companies such as Apple pulling out of China. The vaccines they developed have been a disaster. And of course, the zero COVID lockdown policies have created some real social unrest, perhaps, even an economic or humanitarian crisis. So, add that to what they're doing with the Uyghurs, with the forced labor and concentration camps, and what they're doing in Africa. And, we in the West are doing our best to bring development capital and Western products to Africa in the form of infrastructure investment, to do our best to compete with the Chinese, who are really taking advantage of some of these vulnerable countries with the debt traps and bringing in forced labor, prison labor from China, not paying, properly for royalties to the country. So, they're doing, this is just, I think, a reaction because of the criticism from the West, but also criticism from within.
Right. Why is surveillance almost synonymous with China? Its internal security budget is higher than its military budget, and that says a lot.
It's amazing, Molly. It's a really good point. And yes, they are well known for this. And it just shows the weakness and vulnerability of their system. We saw this in East Germany during the Cold War, when people were ratting out their own family members and neighbors. And, the West should look at this as a warning, to make sure that we maintain our values. It was actually quite recently that, in America and the United Kingdom, people were being asked to rat out their neighbors for violating so-called lockdown restrictions and telling authorities when someone was having a so-called illegal gathering or against some of these rules. So this is right out of the George Orwell playbook from 1984 and Brave New World with Aldous Huxley. I mean, this is frightening, but it's not new, and it's happened in these regimes, these dictatorships and authoritarian regimes, over the last 100 years. So we need to look at that and really have some sort of conscious, monitoring of what they're doing, but also make sure that we don't let those elements infiltrate into the West.
Right. Greg, thanks very much for being here with us and sharing those perspectives.
Thanks for having me, Molly. Great to be here.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.